for the first time.
So obviously it's been talked about, but right now we do have a scenario where Space Station could go home. And that scenario is if they lose this match and Giants win their match on the A stream against Oxygen. So if that happens, Space Station have 2 points, Giants have 3, and then there you go, done. Space Station are out in the groups. Could you imagine, Parker? You only have 2 teams eliminated of all teams invited and qualified, and one of them would be SSG? What a weird scenario that would make for.
But we'll be keeping our eyes on the main stream as we are just a couple moments away from Giants versus OXG, starting things off there. If you are tuning in, I want to get ahead of this. I know that there has been chatter on Twitter, on Reddit, on Twitch about us spoiling the results for people who might be watching this one later on. I do apologize, and we try to give you a heads up when there are spoilers incoming.
Well, he does.
This is a live event. This is a live event where we are going to reference the matchups that are currently happening and previous matchups that you might not have watched. So for those of you that aren't catching this live, apologies in advance, but it's important that we are able to contextualize what's going on so that you can get a better understanding of where the teams are in the standings and in the matchups themselves. So the bands are in, Michael, and we are ready to get underway with NIP versus Space Station. It's going to be your and mine final cast here of the group stages. And I'm excited. We've got a rematch of last year's SI finals, and the first time in a year and a half that these two teams have fought each other. Last time, obviously, SSG stormed back, won it, and with it, they became world champions. This time, if NIP defeat them, SSG have a very solid chance of going home. What a difference this match could make.
Yeah, so let's go through these bans real quick. We've got some interesting ones here. Ying, Ash, Wamai, and Malusi. They all make sense. So the Wamai is going to make clearing out things on this map a lot easier, and that's especially good on Villa because nades are super good here for vertical play. The Ash ban is targeted, obviously, at Ninjas in Pyjamas. Get rid of one of their usually better operators. They'll see him in the hands of Muzi sometimes. It depends, though. Ash could change hands. The Ying ban for Ninjas in Pyjamas is targeted at SSG, as it's known that Space Station have some very unique Ying strategies they can bring out to try and pocket strat some rounds. So getting rid of that Ying eliminates that possibility and makes it so it'll be a much more standard map of Villa. One thing to note here, no Hard Destructors banned, no Thatcher banned, no Valkyrie banned. There's a lot of options for both the attackers and the defenders that are normally locked away.
Well, let's get things underway then. First round starting off. The Australian commentators, by the way, have referred to the site as AVG. For me, that just brings back memories of the antivirus software that people used to run way back in the day. I think I had AVG on my computer, Michael, in 2007, 2008, if I recall, which makes me older than a lot of the people who are watching this broadcast right now. But for everybody else, it's Aviator Games. It's often considered the most defendable site on this map.
Yeah, often is considered to be one of the more defendable sites on this map. Statistically speaking, it's the least defendable site on this map through the 6 Invitational, but not by a large margin. I mean, you're talking about 56% for Aviator, 60% for Trophy, and 65% for Kitchen Dining. Those are defensive win rates, so it's not a wide range. All of the sites are going to be solid. This map overall is one of the more defender-sided maps. In fact, it is the second most behind Consulate at 6 Invitational at 60% overall defensive win rate. So far, clear downstairs for SSG. And they're working on main stairs. They'll already get the lead-off pick on a Psycho.
Bosco trades his life out for it, but thank goodness for him having Rampy there. Unfortunately, Bosco's going to get a taste of his own medicine. The smoke player consistently for Space Station punished by those toxic canisters. Psycho removed from his position on the stairs, but Muzi's not been shaken off of this deployable shield. Fultz might know that. He's got one explosive left. If they can burn that ADS and take the shield out, the explosion, depending on where that lands, could potentially kill him as well. Muzi's only on about 20 HP, and there you go. Fultz kills him with a direct impact. Beautifully done by Space Station.
Nice use of those EMPs. Kamikaze gets his second kill. Down goes Fultz to these holes that watch the bottom of the main staircase. Buck Skeleton Key here from Rampy. He does a lot of great work as Buck in this position, and he's going to try to fish out a pick and regain the man advantage that was just lost for SSG, but it'll actually fire back at him as Pino challenges through these holes. SSG struggling to regain the advantage they had earlier, but they will at least get the mirror window opened up, which is going to make executing on the site that much easier.
Rampy reunited on Buck is such a nice thing to see, and he will terrorize Nip from below and do a lot of damage to Kamikaze in that process. The smoke will have to reposition now on just a single point of HP, giving the Buck down to do whatever he wants to do. Thinking Nate has not been able to make it in through 90 either, and if he decides to rappel in, the main impediment that he's going to have to face is Julio, but he turns his back to this spot. They see him. He's heading on over to Trophy and Statuary, and now the mirror is going to go to play from below. The Nitro Cell not available for Julio. It's already been used. Kamikaze in this very suitable spot now by Bar. He can line him up and knock him down, but Rampy stops him. Pino will now need to be the one to stop them in their tracks. Julio retaking. He takes out Thinking Nate. There's the Nitro Cell. Pino nets 2 with it, and Nip, explosive start to this round. They'll take round number 1.
Great job there to Pino with the C4 from downtown. Really, that made it a lot further than it ought to have. The cover there for SSG was probably blocked line of sight-wise on the toss from the C4 because of the bomb chassis. That's unfortunate for SSG, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes those scenarios happen. Ninjas in Pyjamas take round number 1. And I gotta say, honestly, I expected SSG to take that one. Mostly because of what was happening by main stairs. The use of the Thatcher to get rid of the ADSs, and then to destroy the shield on the main stairs, which, by the way, weird setup from Nip. It didn't really work the way they wanted it to because Thatcher's in play. But because that was so well dealt with by SSG, I honestly expected Spacestation to take that main stairs control and absolutely steamroll Ninjas in Pyjamas on the site. There was plenty of time. They had the manpower advantage. But the problem was that 2-piece that Kamikaze picked up through the holes in the floor in sight, that blunted the momentum of Space Station. And when they went for that execute into sight, it was already an even man count situation, and no real bottlenecks have been opened up. No more extra avenues, other than the bar wall, which didn't amount to very much in the end.
That setup, by the way, on defense involving a shotgun behind the bar has become so commonplace that it still kind of catches me off guard when teams get punished for not scouting that out. How many times have we seen somebody playing behind the bar inside of games with some openings created to watch down towards the bottom of main stairs or watch towards the main doorway?
Legitimately, every time. Every single time someone defends that site.
And yet teams are still getting caught by this. You don't need to drone out the site to have that intel. You just need to drone out from below and see that there's angles opened up.
And thank you, Emzo. Holes do go both ways, so you can challenge those if you are aware of them, and as Parker mentioned, you really should be. So this round, though, kitchen defense, EMP means that this pantry wall, easy to open up. Fultz is there to cover the Exkyros like a mother hen, and they will detonate, meaning that kitchen, the B bomb site, much, much more difficult to hold as the defenders now.
Mother henning, by the way, is one of my favorite comparisons that we can make as casters here. When you sit over top of something, you park the diffuser and you sit on top of it like a mother hen. Always gives nice imagery. Anyway, as SSG's focus is upstairs on Master and Closet, Pino's got a lineup of 4 heartbeats, so he knows almost exactly where everybody is. The only player that it seems that he didn't catch on that sensor was Canadian right at the onset. He uses those X-Kairos to open up some of the walls leading into Pantry. It's not by his side. Pino has Kamikaze there, but can't really do too much in terms of destruction. And that floor that Fultz is on, or was on rather, inside of the closet, cannot be blown up by a nitro cell. So there's no real doom that SSG needs to be too worried about just yet. If they move, that's when things become troubling.
Yeah, you can see a C4 was pre-placed there from Kamikaze, and Pino will call out the detonation really poorly. And then there's, wow, I have 2 C4s missed there for Ninjas in Pyjamas, despite the abundance of information they had at their disposal. And now, full HP SSG, full man count SSG, has full top floor control. The only thing is they haven't cleared out Muzi. They're still above the site, and they're going to get line of sight onto Pino, who whips it around and somehow wins that fight. Even Fultz is paying respect with a nice shot dropped in chat.
Fultz has had a bit of a rough day so far. He talked about this on Twitter just moments before we went live here, and while the rest of the team was able to do okay, they're going to need a better performance from him. Good news is that you've got 2 offensive threats on SSG. Bosco can do his best too. And he's going to catch the pulse of Pino. I don't know why the jump out happened there, but with very limited intel, Bosco still takes a lot of damage, but 30 seconds remaining for SSG to try and figure out where they want to go after the site. Because there are 3 members of NIP upright, you can send somebody up top to just sit and wait. For NIP, they've sent Musi up to challenge Rampy in this position inside a bathroom. And Musi will now watch the area that was opened up by the Zolfia, tries for a kill, but can't land it. Psycho gets one on a Bosco, and now Rampy has that coverage from above. Almost sees Psycho in his position. Canadian's been down by a frost map, by the way. Diffuser has surrendered too, so they're going to have to go for kills. Psycho picked off of his position in Pantry. Julio from above will have to halt this in his tracks. He drops. He'll make some noise inside of Laundry, and he stops them! 3-piece for Julio, and NIP take round 2 yet again, stopping the diffuser.
Y'all can't see it, but my hand is on my face right now. And I'm sure that's how a lot of people feel, because that was just, that is hard to watch, Parker. I mean, it starts here, which, that is hard to watch. But then the timing that we saw from the sledge upstairs, the coverage on Red Hall, that's off. Julio could have died there. He didn't, as he rotated up red stairs. But mostly it's just the frost mat. It's the getting down from a frost mat in that situation, just oof.
Defenders.
Dying seconds of the round, you're running into the site, you're trying to get the plant, and whoopsie. Frost mat. So we're gonna go ahead and rehost it up. Still 2-0. And if you're wondering what was happening there, teams couldn't 6-pick, so you have to make a new lobby so that they can.
There's only 5 players. Why would they need a 6th? You can't do that.
Hey.
Anyway, we're gonna just stall for a second here and get things going again. But let's take a moment to discuss what happened in those previous 2 rounds. Both times, SSG did something wrong, and that was manage the clock very inappropriately. There was 4 seconds left when Pino's Nitro cell went out. When Julio dropped, there was 5 seconds left, or somewhere around there. Both times, NIP were able to steal the ends of these rounds, Michael, strictly because SSG could not manage the clock better through the mid-round, and their usual reliance on Thinking Nade on flank watch failed them. Thinking Nade is widely credited as one of the best flank watches in the whole game. It doesn't matter what region his opponents are in. They'll all say the same thing. And in North America, you'll hear almost every team lavish praise on him. But for both of those rounds, there was nobody from SSG who could step up and watch, especially when Julio dropped from Master on that fateful second round. You're going to make a lot of noise. Did they not hear him because of comms? Did they not hear him because of chaos going on the server? I'm not sure. But both of those rounds really should have been SSG rounds, because what NIP did for the final seconds to stop that diffuser was not really new nor rare.
Yeah, it wasn't special either. It was just, I mean, they also should have had a flank drone above. Like, there really should have been a call much earlier in the round that, oh, hey, Julio's flanking. One of the dead people should have been able to call that out easily. And I mean, if they didn't, that's another piece of negligence to add to the list that you just put up there. I'm still fixated on the frost mat. That's just so rough. The Canadian hit that frost mat and couldn't get the plant down, and he was in the middle of a room. Over the vault on the couch. Anyway, I think we should move on, because it's just gonna keep being disappointing and embarrassing, honestly, for both teams. I mean, what was that run out from Ninjas in Pyjamas? Also, like the Pulse giving away those free picks. We saw a lot of mistakes on both ends, and I think it's the pressure, Parker. At least that would be my guess, because there's a lot going into this match. I mean, there's pressure on Ninjas in Pyjamas. You know, like they definitely want to get the best result they can get out of this one. SSG, though, they're fighting for their lives. Not literally, but, you know, they're fighting for their staying in France. We talked about it earlier. I'll repeat it now. If you lose, if you're eliminated from SI, you do have to vacate France within 48 hours. So when we say or else, yeah. When we say go home, usually we're being metaphorical. Here we're being literal.
I was trying to think of a suitable punishment if people decided to stay, but
they get a slap on the wrist.
I fear misspeaking. I fear what happens if I say something wrong.
They tap him on the nose and say no.
No. Français? No.
Attackers are moving out to
You must go.
I love your French accent, Parker.
Thank you very much. SSG, though, obviously letting nerves get to them a little bit. We've seen time and time again that with a best-of-1 setup, teams let nerves affect them a little bit more because there is very little room for error. You do not have the added luxury of 2 more maps. And the thing is that if you lose your map, let's say it's a best-of-3, you lose your map, that's okay. Because even if you're going to your opponent's map next, with how robust most of the teams at SI's map pools are, there are obviously a couple teams who don't exactly have the best map pool, but with how robust your map pools are, you should be able to find some footing in that map and pray for a map 3.
Right.
If you lose the first 2, 3, 4 rounds, especially if you're on a favorable side, that literally can be the match. And you know that. You know how hard it can be to stay in this after that.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely really difficult. And that's why those 2 rounds were so important. And right now, I just have to mention this. We just spent a minute watching SSG get to the building.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you this is going to be a really, really, really slow round for Spacestation. Like, they're going to be hitting the site with just dying seconds. Based on the pacing I'm seeing right now, they are super slow. And that worries me.
I was going to say, our wonderful spectators have now shown us the Jaeger playing very far off site twice, as he's going to be a looming threat. He was originally on main stairs, now he's over on red stairs, and that's where he's going to sit, getting ever so closer to the site. Try to manage the clock. Can Musi make it back to the bomb site of Trophy Statuary and influence anything in this round? Well, 2 rounds in a row, Nip have prevailed because there's been 1 player unaccounted for by Spacestation that has been able to shove a dagger through the hearts of the attack.
And we'll see if it's going to be Musi this round. Definitely very possible. There's no split push here. Spacestation are just going for Master. They are going as basic as it gets, so as to keep it simple for themselves on the execute. They have managed to get the wall open. Rampy will take some damage from Kamikaze, who's playing a long angle, top red. The one augment here to SSG's attack is Fultz, and he is being flanked right now, whether he knows it or not. He's going to try and get a shield from below. Pino is his primary adversary, though, on that bottom floor. We'll see what happens of it. But it looks like Fultz is actually just going to leave and join his team on the execute.
See if he can accomplish anything. And there's the botched grenade, and that can be huge now as Rampy goes for 2, and well, that one actually connects. Just threading the needle through the wall, and it's gone a little bit farther, but look at that. That shield is still upright. They have not been able to deal with this deployable shield. Wow. There have been 2 explosives used from the Zofia, and now 2 as well from Rampy, and finally a Gon 6 hits its mark. Your guns from SSG are going to need to do something, but Psycho's just peeking on you, dancing on your graves as Space Station loses the first 2. 10 seconds for Psycho to do more. Looking at the doorway, Fultz gets a lead-off pick. Psycho connects for 3. Kamikaze deprives him of the ace. Thinking Nate in a 1v4. Through the main doorway, he'll run out of time, but Kamikaze ends him before the clock does. 3 in a row from Ninjas in Pyjamas, and they complete the perfect cycle here on Villa.
Okay, so a couple big disclaimers here. Number 1, this is a defender-sided map. 60% defensive win rate through the 6 Invitational, the times it's been played so far. That makes it one of the most defender-sided maps that we have in the map pool right now. So that's big. But the counterpoint to that is that round was actually really... it had no bite from SSG. There was no clear execution path for Space Station. What they did was set up on the most basic possible Trophy Statuary executes, which is a complete direct master take. They had 1 augment. That was their Zofia downstairs, who luckily did not get punished on a solo downstairs presence, which I'm surprised about, by the way. But that was it. And that Zofia accomplished very little. Didn't really even need to be down there. They have a Thatcher in play. They can open the wall. But most importantly, I said it at the beginning of the round, because we could all see how long it took Space Station to even get to the building. It would be a slow round. Well, it was. 15 seconds-ish left there when it ended, and Space Station was not even close to beginning their execute into the site. They had only opened up holes and started losing bodies. Add to that the terrible mismanagement of utility, and my consensus here, Parker, so far, even though this is a defender-sided map, is that SSG are in their own heads, and I am seriously worried if I'm a Space Station fan right now.
Well, I mean, if you look at the scoreline, this could so easily be SSG 2-1 against NIP.
That's true.
If you were to chart the performance of both of these teams, Considering opening picks, considering utility usage, rounds 1 and 2 would be entirely SSG until the final 10 seconds of the round, where the graph would just dive down into NIP territory as they won it.
Right.
So, yeah, I would be a little deflated here, too. And the other thing is that those two issues that resulted in rounds 1 and 2 breaking in NIP's favor were not even entirely due to NIP playing it well. It was more just a colossal blind spot from SSG on something that a team of their caliber should be accounting for. There are times where you can praise a team for doing well, and there are times where you can give some credit for another team for simply not blowing it. In this particular case, SSG lost those first 2 rounds more than NIP won them. Now for round number 4, a minute off of the clock, Fultz gets an entry pick. It's on to Musi. The Jaeger's not going to be able to influence much as he's picked off, but next up in line is Psycho, playing inside a living room, and he takes a chunk of HP from Fultz. Still getting pinged away, though, and there's some backup now for Fultz, as Yana of Bosco tries to narrow down where the Vigil is playing.
Ooh, he's been cornered into the bathroom, but what a shot! And a second for Psycho! Down go 2 of the roam clears, and Kamikaze will get another. Wow, it's all full court press for Ninjas in Pyjamas, as Thinking Nade is the last Space Station member left alive, and he will descend into the basement, very likely for a timeout to just give his team some time to think, as this round is effectively over.
A minute 30 is longer than the 30-second technical timeout that you can take. And obviously, Lycan is not going to be able to influence much of this. He can't really talk to his team, but you can see hands off the keyboard for Thinking Nade. He's sitting there looking lost in thought, as I have no doubt that this team is going to try to boost morale, because this has been a miserable start for Space Station. This has been the best round that we've seen from NIP so far. The first 2 rounds, NIP were a little shaky. They found some momentum in that 3rd round, particularly off of the play of Psycho, and then yet again, the same man does it. We are in an era of NIP where Psycho is not the menace that he used to be. When we cast them way back when WOG and PZD were on this squad with Julio, Psycho, and Kamikaze, for years, this old core roster, if Psycho was not popping off, the team would often find themselves losing out. Thank goodness for NIP that they have Musi and Pino now to do some more damage, but it's been the Psycho show thus far. Timeout, by the way, is now over, and Thinking Nade, I don't know exactly what the game plan here is. Maybe just try to end the round to take a proper timeout, I'm not sure. But they know exactly where he is, and he's caught in a crossfire, a wayfire. I don't know exactly what you want to call that, but he wasn't going anywhere in a hurry, except for in the ground. 4-0 NIP.
Yeah, that was unwinnable there from Thinking Nade, and I think that little brief pause for Space Station to consider their options would have been helpful. And so it's good that Thinking Nade was assertive enough to just be like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to the basement. We'll wait this out. We'll see what we can figure out for the next 2 rounds, because Space Station do need to salvage these 2 rounds. So I talked about how this is a defender-sided map. A 4-2 split is not terrible for Space Station. That's the moment of truth, by the way, on the replay right there. Psycho getting those 2 kills, just peeking into it and winning the fights. That is what determines the round for me. We did see some fights happen elsewhere, but they were off screen. If SSG can take these 2 rounds, a comeback is entirely possible. It's certainly doable. The one big thing, Parker, for me, is that there is nothing hindering your hard destruction or even your disabling of the gadgets right now. The attack, by that logic, should be doing a little bit better than they're doing right now.
Why is that frost mat there, by the way? Well, because when you hop in the pantry window, you're going to be swinging to your right. Let's take a look at it. Can you orient from the window, by the way?
What do you mean?
Thank you very much. So when you go to rappel in that window, you're going to vault in, and then your sight is immediately going to be on the pantry door to the right. And in order to get to that doorway, right there, in order to get to that doorway, you're going to just slightly edge to the left. Well, when you get through the window and you edge to the left, what happens? You step in the frost mat, because your attention is going to be guided like a laser on the door and not necessarily on the floor. Same thing happened to Canadian when he vaulted over the couch into a very typical spot. So, yeah, people are surprised that frost mats work. People were surprised when the devs unveiled that frost mats, they're most effective in the highest rank in the game. It's not the casuals, it's not the silvers and the bronzes that are the ones falling victim to the frost mats. No, it's the diamonds. So congratulations, low ranks. You're superior in a way.
I can tell you exactly what it is, by the way. It's just because at the lower ranks, people are a lot slower on the attack, and they're usually very slowly entering into the building, and they're like, oh, frost mat, and they shoot it. Whereas at this rank, at like really high ranks, you'll see a lot of people just go, 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 trying to save every second. And a lot of other considerations come in, but not the frost mats. Nice nade there to get rid of the... Well, actually, it didn't get rid of. The EMP disabled the Electroclaw, but the nade didn't destroy it because it was on the other side of the wall. So Kamikaze is tricking this single wall, trying to deny the EMPs and the nades from being successful and opening it up.
Well, there's a couple things that went wrong for both teams there. Number one, the frost mat got taken out, and Kamikaze will play on the angles to use these Electroclaws. This one going from above, but it's way too slow. A small opening will be created, but then the rest of the wall will be electrified, providing Kamikaze was able to land the Electroclaw in time. Doesn't look like he was, though, by the way. Canadian absorbs a lot of damage. Gone 6 goes off. Nitro Cell from below in hand by Kamikaze. Everybody is still alive, by the way. The only damage that's been done, other than that single frost mat, is on to Canadian in Hibana. Also, given that he's got Diffuser in hand, that is not ideal. You can see that NiP don't have any denial outside of Nitro Cells. There's no evil eyes that they need to worry about, and no smoke on the board means that no damage will tick away at your HP as you try to get that plant off. But the problem is that Canadian is so low that if anything so much as tickles him, he is down for the count.
Also, look at the time. I mean, they're only just now starting to open up the floor, or the defender's ceiling, and it is way late in the round. This is going to be another situation where SSG, when they go for the execute into sight, are going to be strapped for time. At least they get the roamer in the basement. That is something. Lead-off pick for SSG, and this round looks a little bit better than the last time they were in this situation.
Well, SSG's triumphed in those opening duels a couple times, but they haven't really been able to translate it at all. They don't have a single round just yet, and while this might be a good opportunity, they're still taking their lumps. Fultz and Bosco will now join Canadian in the almost dead club. Still upright. NiP fires back, Kamikaze taking damage. Don't let the lack of gunfire and lack of urgency tell you this, but it's 15 seconds to go. That's it. SSG have a lot to do still. Fultz and a frost mat. Canadian will hop on in. He doesn't have time to get his comrade up. He's got to go for the plant. Fultz is down, but still the numbers advantage very heavily favoring SSG, and they're locking NiP out of a retake. Nitro Cell goes and stops it at the last second. How do they get away with this? NiP just continue to steal rounds because SSG aren't expecting it, and it's 5-0 for the Brazilians.
What a difference it would have made had Fultz not hit a frost mat and his gun was up to cover for that C4. What a difference it would have made had Canadian not hit the frost mat in the rounds prior and was able to plant while his teammates covered. What a difference it would have made if this kill or that kill or whatever kill hadn't happened. SSG are coming within inches of winning many of these rounds, and they're not. Ninjas and Pyjamas, on the other hand, surgical in their precision, swiping the rounds away from SSG. Beautiful stuff from NiP. We're talking about the failures on SSG a lot, and to be fair, there's quite a few of them, and they merit discussion. But Ninjas in Pyjamas are just yoinking these rounds away from SSG at the smallest scenario of success. They still managed to make it work. That C4 had no right landing, and it also had no right being successful in winning the round. But there it is. And that's not the first time, Parker. It seems like it's the same things over and over again. Ninjas in Pyjamas are doing so well at just denying the objective from being played every single round, despite how determined SSD appears to get that objective down. It's weird, but honestly, and again, I have to go back a little bit to the whole, talking about the flaws. It's mostly because Spacestation are burning their early and mid round. They're burning it like it doesn't matter, and it's costing them in the late.
I'm going to lie down for a bit.
NiP has just been such a wildly interesting team to watch so far throughout the group stages, and obviously best of ones do not give us a perfect window into the performance that teams are going to have, especially when best of threes emerge. Because best of ones are often just a snapshot. A team can be shaky, a team can be slow, maybe they just, I don't know, maybe they didn't eat enough bread before going into their matchup, even though NA talks about let's get this bread all the time. Maybe they didn't get enough, I don't know. I'm not going to
the bakery.
But what I will tell you this is that we have seen so many close matches here in Group B. NiP absolutely dominating teams, then immediately following up and losing. Parabellum getting smoked on the very first day and then smoking everybody else on the second day. It has been so hard to predict these groups, and I envy the people who have been able to do it right, because boy, oh boy, this just... expectations keep getting subverted time and time again. It's the final defense, though, for NiP as we talk about this, and they are up 5-0. Some of these rounds have been utterly flubbed by SSG. Other times it's been NiP showing that they can waste a lot of time. Spacestation have been thwarted by the roam of NiP on a couple different rounds, but have also beat themselves on the clock. So it's not exactly been as dominant a game for NiP as the score would suggest.
It really hasn't, and Parker's right. The biggest problem isn't always where Ninjas and Pyjamas are roaming. It's usually how slow is SSG on the clear, and you could see that NiP were falling back there. I think that they might have stayed if they were playing against a different team, but playing against SSG right now, considering how slow they are, look at that. Fulsis had to use 2 lifelines to clear out 90 in games. He had to do that because he wasn't sure if it was clear because the drone work from SSG is so slow. That's honestly wasteful, and it's also the time being spent while he clears all that stuff out. Yeah, they've gotten this control now, but 1 minute left on the clock. Where have I seen this one before, Parker?
Probably the previous rounds, Michael, because this is the same pace that we've seen from SSG, and NA in particular has been the slowest region. It's been amazing because Parabellum has been one of the fastest teams in Group B, and they came in with most people sleeping on them. A potential run out now from Pino, who just narrowly misses a kill opportunity onto Fultz. He'll back away back into Memorial just to try to waste time. Trophy Statuary is the scene of the crime now for Space Station. Everybody in the server still upright, 30 seconds left. Perfect timing for NiP to start to lay down some denial. Bad news for them, though, is they don't have a ton of it left. Psycho was the kingmaker in this previous round, while he'll need to be resurrected as he's dropped and bleeding out on the floor by the objective. Pino has a nitro cell in hand. A good call can stop that plant in its tracks, and there it goes from below. Exploding way high. Rampy is down. Bosco sweeps into the site. SSG trying to narrow the numbers as best as they can. Thinking Nate up. He's got the diffuser in hand halfway through. Bosco will need to cover. The coverage from SSG has been poor so far, but Thinking Nate gets off. They won't have time to get the diffuser. It happens again and again and again and again. A flawless first half for NiP as they shut down SSG, depriving them of the objective every single round.
You guys can't see it, but once again, my hand was on my face. So I want to talk about trust, Parker. Trust is an integral part of competitive Siege because you don't have a mini-map in this game. So understanding the roles, like right here, Bosco's role is to cover, Thinking Nade's role is to plant. Understanding the roles and trusting that your teammate will fulfill their role is an integral part of any competitive round, whether you're a defender or an attacker. And I will repeat those roles. Thinking Nade's job there was to plant. Bosco's job was to cover. I know he's got a tall task ahead of him and he's not likely to be successful. But the breakdown of trust there, where Thinking Nade gets off his plant to attempt to cover himself and thus costs his team the round, it means that there's no chance at all. He could have won that fight and maybe started a plant after. Maybe. There was very few seconds left on the clock. It could have happened. But he takes a potential scenario for a win out of the hands of Bosco to try and do something himself. And again, I attribute that, and I don't know what's going on in their team. This is an outsider. I could be, you know, blowing hot air here, but I attribute that to a breakdown in trust. And it's bound to happen when you're down 6-0. So I can't say I'm surprised, but it does tell a story about this match.
You're absolutely correct there. And the first thing that I was thinking when I was watching that unfold was, okay, they're going to swing through double doors. Thinking Nate has 1 second left to get the plant down. That's it. He's on the cusp of getting it. All Bosco needs to do, positioned in the correct place. Bosco is lined up, ready to get that frag easily.
Yeah, he got
Now,
that.
it's very likely that the moment that that happens, the other two players on NiP who were still upright were moving towards that plant position inside a trophy. And by doing that, it's likely that Bosco gets refragged. At that point, Thinking Nade is up off the diffuser, and now he is capable of fighting from his position.
Right.
But instead, he decides to take matters into his own hands. There was no trust shown there by Bosco. There was no trust shown there, rather, by Thinking Nade for Bosco to cover him, and whether communication was a mess or not, That was a massive blunder from SSG when Bosco was the one tasked with shutting that down, not thinking nade, falling off that diffuser. I don't even know if there was enough time for thinking nade to be able to get the kill and then get back onto the diffuser, period.
I'm not sure either, Parker, and that's what makes it really puzzling. And now we see the impact tricking stopped there by Julio. I love what he did there. Julio used his shield to prevent the impact from getting an explosive to just stop those X-Gyros from opening the wall. So that's good use there of the shield. And we've seen Julio be so adept with this Montaigne throughout the 6 Invitational group stages. I expect him, if Ninjas Pyjamas are successful here, I expect that Montaigne will be banned in future SI matches against Julio.
I mean, who do you ban? In terms of shield ops, Nip can abuse either Blitz or Montaigne. And with the way Julio plays and the way Julio calls, we have seen him play this Montaigne an awful lot. For a long period of time, Julio was widely considered to be one of the best shield players in the whole world. And now,
up there.
Well, possibly still up there, though he plays it less. SSG have their hands full. Here's the good news, and spoilers for all of you as we're in the final minute of this matchup. Spoilers incoming. OXG are currently defeating Giants 5-2. If SSG lose this 0-7, but Giants lose their game, that's it. Giants go home. So SSG can get a major leg up from their North American counterparts. And a 7-0 for SSG is looking far more possible, or rather, 0-7 for them. The 7-0 would be on behalf of Nip. As Nip have full control of Pantry and can begin their march into Kitchen, Canadian will need to be the one to stop that with Fultz next to him. The first pick went out in favor of Ninjas in Pyjamas. Canadian shuts him down. This could be a huge round for him. He hears the Montaigne to his left. Fultz will have his attention as Psycho now is on the flank. He's going to come up from red stairs. He's a little ways off. Bosco guns down Pino, and the defenders are doing really well, but there's Canadian and Fultz in on the fun. Psycho now and Musi are the last 2 left for Nip. How close are they to the diffuser? Not close at all. It's miles away. So all SSG needs to do is just sit pretty and deny a 7-0 for Nip. Musi, though, takes out Fultz, but there's just simply not enough time to get these kills, and SSG wins because of the clock and some good play through that mid-round.
Very slow round for Nip, similar to the slow rounds we saw from Spacestation earlier in this match. The Montaigne almost worked out in speeding things up, and I think Nip are going to learn. That's why, despite having won a round, you can see the long faces on Spacestation. They know that the doom is just around the corner. This scoreline is so hard to come back from, even though you're on the advantaged side. No one has won an attack round yet. Neither team. But Nip have so many more opportunities ahead of them. They're going to go ahead and skip on the Montaigne, all right? No, 6 pick. Okay, it's a Capitao. I almost thought it was going to 6 pick it to the Montaigne again, but they're going to skip on the Montaigne, instead bringing a Capitao here, a hidden Capitao at that, to try and do some work. It's going to be a Aviator Games defense now. You know, I liked the strategy we saw from Ninjas Pyjamas the last round just because it was a little bit faster than the ones we were seeing earlier in the match. Like, it was slow, admittedly, but it was just a little bit faster pace. They had contact on site a lot earlier in the round, and even though it didn't work out, I think that slight edge of aggression from Nip is probably what's going to get them the win here.
I mean, I don't think a 6-0 comeback is ever likely. I don't think a 6-0 on any side is likely. For SSG, they've already been a part of one of them, by the way, as they 7-0'd Giants earlier on, just a couple days back. It was actually the very first day of groups that we saw this happen. And it's not the only 7-0 that's occurred here in Group B. In fact, it is one of 3. SSG defeated the Giants 7-0, OXG defeated Parabellum 7-0, and then OXG defeated Makers 7-0. As it stands right now, Nip obviously having this commanding lead right here, and to the best of my knowledge, no timeouts have been taken just yet, at least none that we've been made aware of. So both of these teams can settle their nerves and try to come up with maybe a pocket strat to save the matchup if required. Still, the odds for SSG right now are daunting.
Bomb has been located.
So, Master over clear here. Musi on the spearhead, Rampy below, ready to flank when the moment is right. Plenty of information. 3 different info ops being brought by SSG. Echo, Valkyrie, and Maestro. So you're gonna know what you're dealing with, that's for sure. Especially as these default cams are still being useful. Nip have managed to get control of the master side of the building. Not below, of course. Just on the top floor. They'll isolate their flanks on the staircases, cut off rotation inside of study, and start setting up for an execute into sight. Once they get 90 control, they might even be able to open up the wall into vault. There is a Thatcher in play for NiP. They didn't bring one last round. This time they did. So it's on the impacts of Thinking Nade to stop this wall from getting opened.
We're halfway through here, what is a very critical round for Space Station, and all of them will be until the end of this matchup. Psycho's the first one to fall as Space Station good again on this entry. Haven't been able to tie much more together after that first peg. Looking for a second, though, as the Yana heads in. Impact tricking from Thinking Nade as NiP now have lost 2. These casualties will begin to add up as it blunts their momentum and also takes out 2 very critical components of an execute. No EMPs, and Yana's nades gone 6, and the scouting ability that she has is also gone. Absent that, NiP will have to fight a little bit harder. Down goes Pino, usually a star player for NiP, leaving a 2v5 with SSG now mounting a comeback. But there's a lot more that they have to do, and they're a good 20 minutes away from overtime, which is the only condition at which they could possibly pull out a victory here. They're spread out all across the map. Julio trying to head inward to the site, gets choked off by some smoke. He fires out an arrow, some fire done to Canadian, and almost catches the Echo in his position. Good enough to do some damage, but it will prompt NiP to now reposition. Kamikaze sprayed down from the stairs, and Julio is the only one left in what looks like it'll be a flawless round from Space Station. Trying to chunk away at Bosco, there he goes, but Rampy with the refrag means 2 in a row for SSG.
Very nearly a flawless round, as you mentioned, Parker. But not so. Right at the end, managing to get the only kill for Ninjas in Pyjamas. So let's talk about that. Once again, a much faster round for Ninjas in Pyjamas. You might have noticed there were about 30-40 seconds left when the final body hit the floor, so at least Ninjas in Pyjamas are not wasting their time. That is crucial. Because that's why we saw SSG lose all of their rounds, basically. It's just time. This C4 from below here from Rampy starting things off. The cascade never ended. Space Station kept their momentum going through every engagement, isolating the 1v1 after 1v1 after 1v1s. So beautifully done for SSG. Well-timed aggression, well-placed aggression, and well done in the fights. So NiP are not losing now because of time, as SSG did. They are losing because they're just losing bodies before they can actually get set up for their execute. And that is actually thanks to Space Station's play. Well done again on the assertiveness. It's a very different story for these teams in terms of what's causing them to fail on attack, but the trend of defensive wins continues. No one's won an attack yet.
You talked about how SSG looked quite bad on their droning and their entry, and well, through the 2 rounds that we've seen, NiP struggled more on the second round that just finished than the first. They didn't really seem to know the positioning of SSG, and instead of doing much with drone work, they face-checked a couple opportunities and lost those heads-up gunfights. Now, while the team's ready for this 9th round, I want to update you on what's going on in the other matchup. So for those of you that are listening, please mute for the next 5 seconds. Presently, Oxygen is up 6-2. Now you can unmute. A reminder that if the Giants lose, it doesn't really matter what happens with SSG, the Giants will go home. They must win to stay in contention. If they win and SSG loses, SSG are the team that go home. A Giants loss means that they are sent packing. And the only 2 teams that fail to make it out of the groups will both be APAC squads, as it had been Cyclops yesterday. Anyway, you can keep an eye on that matchup going up on the other channel. But in the meantime, we've got a score to settle here between both NiP and SSG in this rematch that was billed as a mighty contest. Hasn't quite been as close as we'd hoped.
I think a lot of people going into this definitely expected more. Pre-play C4 and a Valkyrie cam to call for the kill. We'll see if that works out. It's going to be Pino who has to test himself through this gauntlet. He's droning it out just to see what's going on, looking for Valkyrie cams. He expects a pre-play C4. I don't think he's found the Valkyrie cam just yet, so I'm just waiting to see, is he going to walk into it? That's the real question. We'll know once he gets off the cam and starts moving. If he goes down the hallway, he will die to Rampy C4 in all likelihood. If he goes back into games, he has a chance at life.
Oh. Off that intel, Fultz will go. Opening pick so critical here, and neither team has really given up much. They haven't engaged as early as you would expect. Bosco bringing out this Tachanka to see exactly what kind of denial he can do, and we haven't really gotten a good look at these Tachanka buffs as of late. I'm curious to see exactly what he's going to be able to do.
Late.
Kino just missing that nitro cell, and he stays alive because of it. This is exactly what he needs. Denial will now come in from the Shumika launcher as Bosco fires over his bomb chassis towards the doorway where Psycho is posted up. That's exactly where the Thatcher is going to play. Final minute here of action. Fultz denying entry to Trophy as he watches one doorway. Bosco has the cross, chunking away at the HP of Psycho before he hides now. Rampy, after that nitro cell went off, will get back to the site. There's no denial outside of the smoke and the Tachanka as the nitro cells are all used up at this point. Patience from Rampy, he's on the flank, he gets one, looks for a second. Not good enough, Fultz is though. He'll try to head back, but he gets stopped in his tracks by the doorway. Shotgun out to engage at closer ranges. Nip stopped for the time being. No momentum built up from either teams right here. Trying to flash Fultz out of the spot. He dodges both. Shotgun still in hand. He can flatten them, and there he goes. Diffuser down, a rodeo as he's waiting for the next. He doesn't get it. Bosco will. SSG coming alive, leaving Julio in a 1v4. He's shut down. SSG takes 3 in a row.
Despite the pressure there that Ninjas of Pyjamas were putting up with their pincer movement, SSG managed to alleviate it by getting aggressive on top red stairs. Because that flank came in and there was assistance from Fultz, they were able to make that a very linear attack for Ninjas of Pyjamas, getting the 2 players on the red stairs side and just shifting focus. All the defenders were able to easily negate the push from Master. Well done to to Space Station on choosing their engagements perfectly.
Michael, I want to step in here if that's all right. And once again, spoilers. So close your ears for the next 10, 20 seconds or so. Regardless of what happens in this matchup, Space Station lived to see another day as Oxygen defeated the Giants 7-2. And we have both teams right now eliminated from SI. Going out in Group A is Cyclops, the Japanese team, and the Singaporean team of Giants Gaming are now gone as well from Group B because they lost their matchup. They absolutely needed to win to stay in it. Space Station can now lose the next round, drop to Nip, but they still stay alive.
Yeah, so North American fans rejoice. There will not be an eliminated world champion for this tournament, and I think that storyline is as it should be. It'd be really odd to see the current technically still the reigning champions, and SSG be eliminated right now. And they won't be. So the stakes for this match have effectively switched to seeding. That is still relevant because Ninjas of Pyjamas want to get as high up as they can in the seeding, and I think right now they actually sit, because of the result of that match, I think they sit in 5th if I'm not mistaken. So they need that extra point to get into the upper bracket. For those who don't know, being in the upper bracket is night and day difference between being in the lower bracket when you get to the playoffs. It's a buffer between you and being eliminated from the tournament. So very high stakes for Ninjas of Pyjamas. Effectively, I don't really know that it matters as much for Space Station, but super high stakes for Nip now. It's weird when you see the stakes of a match shift live through the match. Like, we were going into this and we're thinking to ourselves, oh, SSG could get eliminated. And because a match elsewhere happened, that's no longer the case.
What was a very crucial matchup has now just become less so. Obviously, this will impact seeding, so there's still more to figure out as to what's going on. Oh, I knocked a mug on my desk when I went to move my keyboard.
Was there any liquid in it?
Nope.
Oh, good. That's good.
It's all done. I just, I'm not going to go and run down and put my mug in the kitchen while we're in the middle of casting, Michael.
Are you sure?
I'm positive, but thank you for asking. But yeah, the stakes in this matchup obviously just dropped significantly, and all the fans of Space Station are capable of taking a deep breath, as SSG will now live to see another day.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big thing now that is going to be in everybody's minds is how does the seeding work? We've already started to see some teams get filed in. For Nip here, they are currently tied with Makers. If they win this matchup, they will finish in the top 4 along with TSM, MIBR, and OXG. And even though OXG had some early struggles, they're in a pretty good spot right now. They've secured themselves a final in the top 4, which means that they will be going into the upper bracket. So Nip, well, they're very close, but they have struggled over these last 3 rounds. Not a single attacking round victory just yet, and we know that this is going to be a difference maker. Bosco blows that nitro cell just a little bit too early, and because that Kamikaze can continue to walk forward, That's good news for Nip.
Yeah, unfortunate timing there for Spacestation. They've been missing a lot of those C4s. Now, vertical play here for Nip. They're going to start opening up above this kitchen defense. This is where it all started for Spacestation. There, they could bring it all the way to OT if they are able to keep that going. Last time, Nip attempted a Montaigne plant through Pantry, and it didn't work out very well for Ninja Pyjamas. So this time, they're going for a much more standard strategy. Execute from above, open up from above, get some picks on the anchors, then execute when the anchors have been either killed or dislodged from their position. So far, no kills, but you can see SSG have scattered a little bit more than they would like to because some of their key positions have been opened up on from above.
If I'm a fan of SSG, I'm a little worried that Nip haven't committed any mistakes yet for you to punish them on. And in fact, now SSG's numbers will dwindle as Muzi gets the leadoff pick. 40 seconds left. He's engaged and looking for a second, taking away a big part of Thinking Nades HP, and then finishing off Canadian. Down he goes. Rampy, one on Nepino. That's good enough for SSG's first pick, and Rampy has control above. As you can hear, the logic bomb will go off, giving position of the defenders away. Nobody playing on the mute jammers just yet. Thinking Nade will drop Laundry. This is reminiscent to the position that we saw Julio do as Nip now walks into the site. They have control. Thinking Nade re-entries, but they hear him. Psycho's lined up, prepped and ready. Rampy from above can play spoiler, but he's got a lot of targets to find. And now in a 1v4, he's got even more to do. He can't work around those openings and will have to drop himself. In a 1v4, Nip looking like they'll secure the very first victory on attack. Now with Diffuser down as well, Rampy will scramble. Some damage being done to Muzi. Rampy a nice pick onto Julio, but a lot more to do. And of course, his position is given away. He's not going to know that there's one to the left. A mark comes out. He swings. Nice shot onto Muzi. 2 more to go. A comeback in the making on this round in particular. Diffuser is down. Rampy gets some information, sees nobody's on it. He knows exactly where that diffuser is, though. He'll have to retake. Directly to the left. He gets pre-fired by Kamikaze in the rubber match. It's Nip who ends up taking it. And they win over the defending champions 7-3. The rematch going in favor of the Brazilian.